I felt the mug slide from my fingers before I even registered the words. Coffee fanned out across the polished terrazzo of the Palm Springs resort lobby, a dark bloom beneath the chandelier's soft light. The concierge's voice tried to soften the blow, but there's only so much cushion you can put around a fall. "I'm so sorry, Miss Hayes, there's no reservation under your name." He tapped his screen again, embarrassment flushing his cheeks. "We have bookings for the Hayes family, plural, but not for you." Behind me came the sharp metronome of stilettos on stone. Vanessa, my sister, knew how to make an entrance, how to tilt her chin just so, how to make a room notice. "Lauren," she said with the kind of smile that could cut you if you didn't keep your distance, "you made it, finally." She raised her voice, not by much, just enough for the people trimming palm fronds from their mocktails to glance over. Such a mix-up. "I only booked for family me, Matt, the parents, and Ella. We assumed you had, your own thing going." Her tone made "your own thing" sound like mold on a shower curtain. I tasted copper. It's amazing what humiliation tastes like a penny melting under your tongue. The lobby smelled of citrus water and new money. A cluster of holiday garlands wound around the balustrade like a magazine spread. I'd flown in after a 12-hour week of lab tests and deadlines, hair still carrying the memory of airplane air and recycled hope. Thanksgiving in the desert. It was supposed to be the truce holiday. "Maybe check under Hayes, Lauren, instead of Miss Hayes?" I offered, even though I knew. I knew because this exact scene had been rehearsed in our family for years, just never this publicly. The concierge looked again, winced. "I'm afraid not." Vanessa's Hermes clinked when she adjusted the strap. Logistics, right? "Anyway, we're doing the chef's table tonight. Dad's already bragging about the bourbon pairing. You could always grab a room, if there's anything left." She tilted her head sympathetically, like a pageant queen consoling a runner-up. Through the revolving door, I saw Ella 10 now, taller every time, press her face to the glass, scanning for me. She'd texted me heart emojis when I boarded in Chicago. I shifted my carry-on. Inside, wrapped in velvet, was a tiny pearl hair clip I'd picked out months ago, something that felt delicate and strong at the same time. Our parents stood a few feet away, pretending to admire the koi pond installation. My mother adjusted her scarf. My father studied a brochure like it was a research paper on discomfort. They didn't step in. Of course they didn't. They never did. Vanessa was the glossy one, the visible one, the one who understood the choreography of their world. I was the backstage crew, useful until I wasn't. My voice when it came surprised me with how steady it sounded. "It's fine," I told the concierge. "I'll figure it out." I nodded at Vanessa. "You all have a great dinner." For a flicker, something uncertain crossed her face. This wasn't the scene she wanted. She'd written me as the girl who stammers and begs. I walked out into the dry heat, which smelled faintly of rosemary and hot stone, and ordered a rideshare. The driver's Camry pulled up, and I slid in, the leather warm against my skin. As the resort receded in the side mirror, so did the cage of it, the script, the directives, the way the family always seemed to orbit around Vanessa's gravity. My phone pulsed in my palm. I scrolled to a number I kept starred. Not my parents, not Vanessa. The man who used to sign his letters with a fountain pen and a simple G. He'd taught me to balance a checkbook before I could drive, had whispered, "Earn your peace. Don't inherit it after my first paycheck." He was gone now, at least in the way that counts, but not absent. Not really. The line rang, once, twice. The voice that answered was not his. It was the calm, measured voice of the attorney who had been his right hand for 30 years. "Hayes and Benton," he said. "This is David." I took a breath that felt like an anchor dropping. "David? It's Lauren. I need to talk about Grandpa's letters." And Clause 14b. But I had no idea that one phone call would turn their picture-perfect lives upside down. The taxi hummed along the empty desert road, and I watched the hotel's golden lights shrink into a blur in the rearview mirror. My reflection stared back at me, tired eyes, makeup cracked from dry air, and a faint tremor at the corner of my lip. Somewhere between the prickly silence of that lobby and the ride's air-conditioned hum, my anger settled into something colder. It wasn't the first time I'd been the family's afterthought. Growing up, I was the practical one, the kid who clipped grocery coupons, while Vanessa strutted through prom night in a custom gown Dad financed with a second mortgage. Mom would always say, "She's just more social, Lauren. You're the brain, she's the heart." But somehow, brains never got invitations to family photos. By the time I graduated from MIT, Vanessa was already flaunting her entrepreneur lifestyle online, though her startup never made a dollar. She'd post photos in front of designer boutiques, tagging them number girl boss and number blessed, while living off our grandfather's monthly transfers. Grandpa saw through it, of course. He used to tell me, "Honey, when people can't build value, they perform it." He was my compass. After Grandma died, I spent my summers in his old Pasadena bungalow, cataloging his medical books, helping with bills, and listening to stories of how he built the family's first pharmacy from nothing but a rented storefront and grit. He believed in hard work and sweat before reward, a philosophy no one else in our family bothered to inherit. When he passed, he left behind a trust. Vanessa assumed she'd get most of it, as she always had. And she did, or so she thought. Grandpa's will was written with layers, almost like he expected this kind of betrayal. On paper, everything looked simple. A trust managed for the benefit of descendants. But buried deep in the legal language was a quiet clause, one that only his attorney and I ever discussed. A safety net woven out of fairness and foresight. As the taxi rolled past a glowing "Welcome to Palm Springs" sign, my phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. "You really didn't need to make such a scene. Just book your own room next time. You're making it awkward for everyone." Her words were like deja vu, the same tone she used when she stole my college savings years ago for a loan she never repaid, the same way she blamed me when her business collapsed. My stomach turned, but not from hurt. This time, it was recognition. A pattern. The driver glanced at me through the mirror. "Rough night?" he asked, kind but cautious. I smiled faintly. "You could say that. Family stuff. Ugh." He nodded like he'd heard it 1,000 times before. "Family's complicated. Blood's not always thicker than peace." I laughed softly. It was something Grandpa might have said. He'd always warned me about confusing family loyalty with emotional blackmail. He once handed me a folded letter during his last hospital stay, said to open it when the balance tips. That phrase had haunted me for months. The balance tips. Tonight, I finally understood. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my email drafts, and found one sitting at the bottom half-written, "Never sent to David Benton, Grandpa's lawyer." The subject line read, Estate Matters, Clause 14, B. I'd written it months ago and chickened out. Tonight, though, there was no hesitation. I hit send. Then I whispered to myself, the balance just tipped. But what they didn't know was that Grandpa left behind more than just money. He left proof. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the slats of my Airbnb blinds, slicing across the white comforter like truth cutting through denial. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying the lobby, the way my parents had turned away, the gleam of satisfaction in Vanessa's eyes. But beneath the exhaustion, something else was stirring. Resolve. I made coffee, the cheap kind that came in a foil packet, and opened my laptop. My inbox blinked with a new message from David Benton. "Lauren, I received your email regarding Clause 14B. As you know, your grandfather anticipated potential misuse of funds. If you've observed irregularities, we can proceed discreetly. Let's schedule a secure call. Elf M. PST works?" I sipped my coffee and clicked yes before I could overthink it. The truth was, I'd found the irregularities months ago by accident. When Grandpa was in the hospital last year, I had access to his financial portal to track medical expenses. That's when I noticed the transfers. Clean, round numbers, $10,000, $15,000 labeled consulting fees, and healthcare reimbursements. At first, I thought they were legitimate, but the dates didn't match any hospital invoices. I dug deeper. One of the accounts listed under family beneficiaries was V. Hayes Consulting LLC, a business Vanessa had created years ago, supposedly for her lifestyle brand that never took off. But this LLC had been funneling over $480,000 in trust disbursements since Grandpa's stroke. Money meant for medical care, not personal shopping sprees and influencer trips to Turks and Caicos. I still remember confronting her about it back then. It was after Grandpa's memorial, when everyone else was drinking champagne by the pool. I caught her on the patio and said, "Vanessa, you took money meant for his care." She didn't even flinch, just sipped her mimosa and said, "He wanted me to be comfortable, Lauren. You wouldn't understand, you don't have a family to support." The audacity had stunned me into silence. But that night, I'd printed everything, bank statements, account summaries, even screenshots, and tucked them into a manila folder labeled "if needed." Grandpa's words echoed in my head, "Earn your peace." And now, here I was earning it. At 11 sharp, David's face appeared on the screen. Silver hair, calm expression, the same steady tone that used to balance out Grandpa's temper. "Lauren," he said, "I've reviewed your prior communications. Do you have confirmation of misuse?" I opened the folder, holding each sheet up to the camera. All here: transfers, dates, and account names. Vanessa created a shell company. The trust funds were redirected without medical justification. He nodded gravely. "Then you understand what this means. Clause 14B authorizes a full audit. Once we initiate it, the trust automatically freezes until resolution. No withdrawals, no exceptions." My pulse raced. Even for my parents? Even for them. "Your grandfather wrote this clause to protect integrity, not comfort. He trusted you'd know when to activate it." The weight of those words sat heavy on my chest. I thought of Mom's pearls, Dad's golf membership, Vanessa's endless vacations, all of it built on a lie. David typed something on his end. "The audit will begin immediately. You'll receive an update within 24 hours. Once triggered, the process can't be reversed." I stared at the blinking cursor on my screen. My finger hovered over the mousepad. "Lauren," he added quietly, "this is your choice. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout?" I looked past the camera, at my reflection in the dark laptop glass. The same tired eyes, but now steadier. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." He nodded once. "Then it begins now." The screen went black, and a single notification popped up. "Trust audit activated." I exhaled, hands trembling, as if a weight had been lifted or maybe just shifted. And that one line became the beginning of their undoing. By noon the next day, the world I'd known all my life began to tilt quietly at first, then with the force of an earthquake. It started with a message from my mother. "Lauren, what did you do? The bank just froze our account. Your father is furious. This is ridiculous." A second later came one from my father. "Is this about your sister again? You've gone too far this time." End quote. Then, almost comically, Vanessa's name flashed across my screen with a string of frantic texts. "What's going on? Matt just got an email from the trust office. Did you talk to David?" I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sat in my kitchen with a bowl of cereal gone soggy, staring at the blue light of my laptop. The legal notifications had started to roll in. All distributions suspended pending investigation. All beneficiaries frozen until audit completion. Financial privileges revoked. Clause 14B wasn't a myth after all. It was Grandpa's version of divine justice, delayed but not denied. Within hours, chaos rippled through the family group chat. Dad demanded explanations. Mom pleaded for calm. Vanessa typed in all caps. And when she realized she couldn't charm her way out, she turned vicious. "You think this makes you better than us? You always wanted to tear us apart. You're sick, Lauren. Grandpa would hate you for this." I closed my laptop. The words stung, but only because they were recycled versions of the same accusations I'd heard since childhood. I just never realized how much power I gave them by responding. By 5 p.m., my phone rang again. David Benton. "Lauren," he said evenly, "I wanted to update you. The audit has officially commenced. Early indicators show significant misuse of funds from 2 accounts your sisters and 1 jointly owned by your parents. I'll be contacting the court tomorrow to formalize the freeze." I rubbed my temples. "How long until they know the full extent?" "A few days. But, Lauren, you need to prepare yourself. They'll try to make you the villain. It's what people do when their illusions collapse." I smiled faintly. I've been the villain before. Still, that night I couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window, watching the city lights blink across Lake Michigan. It was peaceful, but my thoughts were anything but. I imagined Vanessa's reaction, her phone buzzing nonstop, her husband pacing, her perfect world cracking under the weight of exposure. Then my email chimed again. This time, it was from David. Per Mr. Hayes' final directive, once Clause 14B is activated, all secondary clauses take effect. You are now the acting custodian of the trust audit. Custodian. The word carried more gravity than I expected. It wasn't power, it was responsibility. The kind Grandpa would have trusted only me with. I thought of his last Thanksgiving, how he'd looked across the table, frail but sharp, and said quietly, "Integrity's the only inheritance that holds its value." Outside, a sudden gust of wind rattled the glass. Somewhere in Palm Springs, Vanessa was probably screaming at a banker. Mom was likely blaming me over wine. Dad, calculating damage control. And me? I just sat there, staring at the reflection of my own face in the dark window, wondering if justice always had to come at the price of loneliness. Because revenge might have started this, but redemption would decide how it ended. But revenge has a cost, and mine was just beginning to show. The next morning, my phone became a war zone. Missed calls, voicemails. Text stacked like debris from an explosion I had detonated, but hadn't yet dared to survey. Each message carried the same cocktail of desperation and accusation, my family's signature flavor. First came Mom's voice, thin with panic. "Lauren, how could you? The utilities on the Naples house bounced this morning. Do you have any idea what you've done to your father? To us?" Then Dad's. "I don't know what sick game you're playing, but your sister's kid doesn't deserve this. Fix it, Lauren. Call that lawyer of yours and fix it." And finally, Vanessa, always the lead actress in her own tragedy. "You think you're some kind of hero? You've just destroyed the whole family for attention. Grandpa's dead, and you're desecrating his memory." Her voice cracked on the last line, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. Probably both. I stared at my phone for a long time before hitting play on the next voicemail. It was Ella, my niece. Her little voice trembled through the static. "Aunt Lauren, Mom's crying. She says we might have to move. Did you do something bad? I don't understand." That one hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened. I wanted to call back, to tell her that I didn't do something bad, that I did something necessary. But how do you explain moral integrity to a 10-year-old watching her world unravel? The silence of my Chicago apartment felt heavier than usual. My therapist had once told me that in dysfunctional families, the moment you stop absorbing the pain, they start accusing you of causing it. I was living proof. Still, a part of me wavered. I started to wonder, had I gone too far? Maybe I should have given them time, confronted them privately. Maybe I was becoming what they always accused me of being: cold, detached, merciless. Then came the screenshot. A friend from the firm forwarded me an email Vanessa had sent to one of Grandpa's old accountants. The subject line read, "Urgent Fraud Report, Lauren Hayes." In it, she claimed I had forged financial records to frame her, that I was mentally unstable and seeking revenge over old sibling jealousy. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The hypocrisy was staggering, not just the lie itself, but the fact that she thought people might believe it. She'd spent years performing sainthood online. Why not off stage, too? I opened my laptop, scrolling through the documents I'd archived. Bank transfers, time-stamped emails, even Grandpa's last handwritten note, where he mentioned trusting Lauren's vigilance. Every piece of evidence sat there, glowing like quiet vindication. I picked up the phone and called David Benton. "David, she's trying to flip the narrative," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "She's contacting old advisors, claiming I fabricated the audit." He sighed. "That was predictable. But don't worry, we have digital trails for everything. She can't rewrite data logs." "Still," I murmured, "she's dangerous when cornered." "Then it's time to show her that the walls are real." That night, a local finance blog broke the story. Socialite Vanessa Hayes under investigation for trust misuse. The article detailed nearly 500,000 in questionable withdrawals, referencing public court filings. Within hours, the comment section filled with shock, gossip, and schadenfreude. Vanessa's Instagram, once a gallery of perfect smiles and branded partnerships, went private by dawn. My phone lit up again. One message, no punctuation. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. I stared at the screen, pulse steadying. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt focus. Because if it was war she wanted, she just chose the wrong opponent. The morning the story hit the mainstream, my inbox became a front row seat to poetic justice. Headlines spread like wildfire across local media outlets. Influencer couple under federal trust investigation. Vanessa Hayes' luxury brand collapses amid allegations of fraud. Her entire digital empire, the image she'd curated for years, imploded overnight. The same followers who once worshipped her blessed lifestyle now filled her comment sections with disbelief, sarcasm, and eventually, silence. The perfect world she'd built on filters and fake virtue was crumbling pixel by pixel. I wasn't gloating. Not yet. But there was something deeply satisfying about seeing truth finally outshine performance. By afternoon, David called again. The audit's findings are now public record, he said. Multiple unauthorized transfers, falsified invoices, and, he paused, a falsified medical claim signed under your mother's name. I swallowed hard. So she was in on it? Your parents benefited whether they knew the full extent or not. They accepted those funds as gifts from Vanessa. Legally, that counts. I sat back, numb. I'd expected Vanessa's greed, but not my parents' complicity. For years they'd lectured me about loyalty, about family honor, all while living off deception. My phone buzzed again, a call from Matt, Vanessa's husband. I hesitated, then answered. His voice was tight, angry. Lauren, what the hell did you unleash? She's losing brand deals, sponsorships, everything. Reporters are calling my office. I didn't unleash anything, Matt. I just told the truth, he scoffed. Truth? You could have handled this privately. I almost laughed. Privately? You mean like how she handled Grandpa's trust? Or how she handled freezing me out of Thanksgiving? Silence. Then, quietly, she's falling apart. For the first time, there was something in his tone I didn't expect. Shame. She lied to me too, he admitted. About the money, about everything. His voice cracked. I found the credit card bills last night. We're drowning in debt, Lauren. We were never rich, it was all him. Your grandfather. The call ended abruptly, and I sat there staring at my phone, heart pounding. The dominoes were falling faster than I imagined. By evening, the story reached the national tabloids. A photo of Vanessa, hair messy and eyes hidden behind sunglasses, was plastered beside the headline. Socialite's empire in ruins, family scandal exposed. And then, around 9 that night, came the inevitable knock. Through the peephole, I saw my sister, standing on the other side of my Chicago apartment door. No makeup, no designer bag, just a plain gray sweatshirt and red-rimmed eyes. When I opened the door, she didn't wait for an invitation. You ruined me, she hissed, her voice raw. Everything I built, everything I had gone because you couldn't keep your jealousy in check. I met her gaze calm and steady. You didn't build anything, Vanessa. You just stole better than everyone else. Her lip trembled. You think this makes you strong? You're still alone. You'll always be alone. She turned to leave, but I spoke before she reached the hall. No, Vanessa. I just stopped letting you rent space in my peace. For a second, something flickered in her eyes, recognition. Maybe even regret, but it was gone as fast as it came. She stormed off, the sound of her footsteps fading into the corridor. I closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Justice had come, but it didn't feel victorious. It felt quiet. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent. Somewhere across the skyline, my family's old house of cards was finally collapsing. But even after the truth came out, the hardest part wasn't over. A week after Vanessa's visit, the storm had shifted from thunder to silence, the kind that hums beneath the skin. My phone, once alive with endless notifications, now lay face down and still. The world had moved on to fresher scandals, and the Hayes family had faded into the digital shadows where all fallen idols go. In the quiet, reality settled in. The trust had been dissolved, pending redistribution. My parents sold their Naples home, quietly and quickly, before foreclosure caught up. Vanessa's husband filed for legal separation, irreconcilable differences, and financial deceit. Her lawyer phrased it delicately. The tabloids didn't. They called it what it was: betrayal. And yet, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt emptied out. I still woke up early for work at the biotech firm. Still brewed the same dark roast. Still caught the morning train with strangers, reading headlines about people other than me. But sometimes, when I caught my reflection in the window, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Justice, it turns out, has a strange aftertaste. It's not sweet or satisfying, it's sterile. Like the air in the lab, where I spent most of my waking hours. Clean, controlled, cold. I thought about calling them my parents, even Vanessa, but every time I rehearsed the words, the silence afterward was louder than the apology I never heard. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted restoration. The kind that money, not humility, could buy. One night, while organizing files for an upcoming research grant, I found an old envelope tucked between my notebooks. Grandpa's handwriting familiar, looping, unhurried. I hadn't seen it since his funeral. Inside was a short note, written on his favorite cream stationery. If the time ever comes when the truth breaks, what's false, let it. The noise will fade, only peace remains. I pressed the letter to my chest. For the first time in weeks, I cried not out of anger, but release. He'd seen it all coming. Maybe not the details, but the shape of it. The way illusion always implodes under its own weight. In the following days, I started rebuilding. Not them, just me. I took long walks by the lake after work. I joined a mentorship program for girls in STEM, teaching them what Grandpa taught me: how to stand on your own feet without apology. The irony wasn't lost on me how I had spent years earning independence, only to be punished for it by my own family. Now, that very independence was my sanctuary. Weeks passed. Then, one gray afternoon, as snow gathered along the curb, my phone buzzed again, an unfamiliar number. Area code from Florida. I hesitated before opening the text. Aunt Lauren, it's Ella. Mom doesn't know I'm texting you. I just wanted to say I miss you. She cries a lot. I told her I want to be strong like you. The words blurred before my eyes. I set the phone down and exhaled. For a moment, the walls of my apartment felt softer. The quiet, less lonely. I didn't know what to say. Not yet. I just whispered to the empty room, I miss you too, baby. And as the snow began to fall heavier, I realized something unexpected. Maybe the storm had cleared the sky for something new to grow. Until one small message from Ella changed everything. The text stayed pinned at the top of my screen for 3 days. Every time I glanced at my phone, that one line pulled at me like gravity. I want to be strong like you. It was strange how 10 simple words could undo all the armor I'd spent years building. By the 4th day, I couldn't stand the distance anymore. I bought a plane ticket to Florida under a different last name, told no one at work, and boarded the flight with nothing but a carry-on and a knot of emotions I couldn't name. The flight was quiet, and I spent most of it staring out at the clouds, wondering if forgiveness and foolishness were just two sides of the same coin. When I landed in Tampa, I rented a car and drove past the exit for the luxury-gated community my parents once bragged about. Their name had been scrubbed off the residence list months ago. They now lived in a modest condo near a public park, the kind of place where retirees walk their dogs at sunrise and wave at each other like neighbors from a simpler era. But I wasn't here for them. The address Ella had mentioned in a brief follow-up message led me to a small elementary school. It was career day, according to a banner flapping across the fence. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I parked. For a moment, I thought about turning back. Then, through the school gates, I saw her. Ella hair pulled into a ponytail, backpack dangling from one arm, laughing with a classmate, her smile wide and free. No designer dress this time, no diamond hair clip, just a kid being a kid. When she spotted me, her eyes went wide, and she ran across the grass before I could even get out of the car. Aunt Lauren, she gasped, throwing her arms around my waist. I held her tight, trying to blink back the tears that burned my throat. You came, she said. Mom said you wouldn't want to see us. I knelt so we were eye level. Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're hurting, I said softly. But I always want to see you. A quiet voice interrupted us. Lauren? I turned. Vanessa stood a few yards away, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. No makeup, no glamour, just exhaustion and humility in human form. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I told her not to text you, Vanessa finally said, her tone wavering. I thought you'd want nothing to do with us. I stood up slowly. I almost didn't, but then she wrote me that message, and I realized she's the only innocent one in all this. Vanessa looked down, nodding faintly. You were right, she whispered. About everything. The money, the lies, all of it. I was so scared of losing face that I lost myself instead. Her words landed heavier than I expected. Years of resentment, comparisons, and unspoken jealousy hung between us like smoke. I didn't do it to punish you, I said quietly. I did it because someone had to stop the cycle. Grandpa left you comfort, but he left me conscience. I just chose to use it. She nodded again, eyes glistening. I know. I just wish it hadn't taken losing everything to understand it. We stood there in silence, the Florida sun softening behind the clouds. Ella looked up at both of us, confused but hopeful, her small hand reaching for each of ours. Without thinking, we both held on. Later that afternoon, we sat on a park bench watching kids play on the swings. Vanessa told me she'd taken a job at a local boutique, that she was learning how to budget, that Ella was thriving in public school. She wasn't the same woman who once mocked me across a marble hotel lobby. I used to think being independent meant being alone, I admitted. Now I know it just means not letting anyone buy your peace. Vanessa gave a weak smile. I'm still learning that part. I pull. When we finally said goodbye, she handed me a small envelope. I found this in Grandpa's study after the audit, she said. I think he meant it for you. I waited until I was back at the rental car before opening it. Inside was a folded piece of paper in Grandpa's elegant handwriting. To my girls, when pride destroys what love built, only humility can rebuild it. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the proof that the lesson was worth learning. I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger toward my family, only a quiet, aching hope. But I still had one more thing left to do something Grandpa would have wanted. A year later, Chicago's November air carried that soft chill that hinted at winter but still smelled faintly of autumn leaves. My apartment, small, warm, and full of the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore, was glowing with the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon candles. It wasn't the breakers in Palm Springs. No marble floors or designer heels clicking through lobbies. Just a worn oak table, a thrifted centerpiece of dried flowers, and peace. For the first time in a decade, I was hosting Thanksgiving. The knock on my door came at 6:15. When I opened it, my parents stood there, both a little grayer, a little smaller somehow. My mother clutched a casserole dish like an offering. My father held a pie from a local bakery. Behind them was Vanessa, her hand resting gently on Ella's shoulder. No one spoke at first. It was awkward, tentative, real. Hi, I said, breaking the silence. Hi, Vanessa replied, her voice soft. We brought pumpkin pie, store-bought. I didn't trust my oven. I smiled. That's fine. I don't trust mine either. We laughed. It was small, almost fragile, but it was laughter. And that felt like a beginning. Dinner was imperfect. The turkey was a little dry, the potatoes slightly oversalted, and the conversation stumbled between safe topics like weather and Ella's school projects. But there was no shouting, no performance, no pretending. My father even admitted he'd started volunteering at a local food pantry. My mother said she'd learned to live smaller, but she meant it as pride, not pity. When Ella excused herself to wash her hands before dessert, Vanessa leaned back and exhaled. It feels strange, she said quietly, to sit here without pretending we're okay. Strange, I said. But better, she nodded. I'm working part-time now. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And Ella's happy. She says she wants to be a scientist, like you. That one made my chest tighten. She'll be better than me, I said. After dinner, When everyone was laughing over mismatched mugs of coffee, I stood up and went to my bedroom. From the top drawer of my desk, I took out a small velvet box that had been waiting there for over a year. When I returned to the table, I knelt beside Ella and handed it to her. "This was supposed to be your Thanksgiving gift last year," I said, "but I think this year's the right one." She opened it carefully. Inside was the pearl hair clip still luminous, untouched, like the day I bought it. Her eyes widened. "It's so pretty," I smiled. "Your great-grandpa once told me pearls are formed when something irritating gets trapped inside an oyster. The pain turns into beauty, so when life hurts, remember that's where your strength comes from." She nodded solemnly, clutching it like treasure. As the night went on, we didn't talk about the scandal, or the money, or what we'd lost. We talked about things that mattered: the future, work, books, music. We were just people again. Not roles, not debts. Family. Maybe for the first time in the truest sense. Later, as I stood by the window watching snow flurries start to fall over the city, I thought about Grandpa's letter, the one that ended with, "Forgiveness isn't weakness." I finally understood. Forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me. It was the key that unlocked the rest of my life. Family doesn't mean ownership. It means respect, honesty, and peace. And no one, no matter how close their blood runs, has the right to control your peace. I turned off the lights, the laughter still echoing softly behind me, and whispered a quiet thank you to the man who taught me how to stand, to the pain that taught me how to rise, and to the family that, finally, learned how to be human again.